Welcome back to my channel. My name is Cassidy, and today we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in January. I read 5 books this month. I believe all of them were over 300 pages, and one of them I listened to on audio. First book that I read is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. Conversations with Friends is very popular on the internet. Sally Rooney is a very popular writer, known for her writing style, her lack of quotation marks, her very plotless stories that are more focused on the actual people than the events around them, which honestly usually is up my alley. I really like stories that only talk about people, about the dynamics that the people have, and add some commentary around relationships and human nature. Conversations with Friends is about a girl named Frances who's 21 in college in Dublin, and her best friend slash ex-girlfriend Bobby. They come in contact with a famous couple, a famous writer and a famous actor, and the story follows the relationship and the relationship dynamics between Frances and Nick, who is the famous actor, Nick and his wife, and Bobby. While I don't think that this book was for me, I didn't hate it. I do think, not that it was a bad book, but the hype around it had me expecting to feel changed by the book, and I did not feel that way. Overall, it was enjoyable to just read about these people and their drama, but maybe this is really more about me than anyone else, but I didn't find the drama all that interesting or all that exciting. Neither did I find the conversations that they had around it all that interesting or exciting either. I understand the dynamics that Frances and Nick in particular have, and I understand the dynamics that Frances and Bobby have, but it didn't seem like they really said much. Frances is supposed to be this super intelligent, book smart girl, yet she has no thoughts or reflections as to why a married man 10 years her senior, while she is a broke college student, would be interested in her. Even at one point, Bobby does start to dissect that feeling for a little bit, where they just kind of dismiss it as jealousy. The conversations they have around politics, around society, nothing that I haven't heard before. So overall, while it was an okay, enjoyable read, I didn't hate it by any means. I felt like it was a slice of life that isn't particularly my taste. The next book I read was Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I do have to add the disclaimer that I am not a smart person. I don't like a spicy book in particular, and I go into my books nearly blind about what they're going to be about or the author, and I find that okay. I take that risk all the time. I enjoy going in blind because I feel like it gives the author the job of getting me into what it is that they're doing. Even with my aversion to spice and to smut, which if you are a lover of spice and smut, you will enjoy that part of the book. Kennedy Ryan is a very good smut / spicy writer. She is very good at adding the sexual tension, building that up. She did a really good job. I also really liked the conversations around grief, the descriptions of grief. There are some content warnings that I think you should be aware of before you read the book, because at certain points it does get very explicit about death, the feelings of grief, of having to deal with the loneliness that you might feel or the anguish that you might feel after certain losses. So as a disclaimer, that is something to be wary of. Before I Let Go is a second chance romance with dual POVs, interchanging between Yasmin and Josiah, who are recently divorced about a year or so after experiencing 2 great losses that ended up ripping them apart while they both grieved in radically different ways. It follows the story of Yasmin and Josiah navigating life as business owners, as parents, and as people who still very much are attracted to each other and very much love each other. I think Yasmin as a character was a really good vehicle to speak about the way that Black women get perceived when they can't be strong all the time, when they reveal themselves to not always be able to take every hit, and also how it can really affect the relationships that they have with men, with Black men, and the relationship Black men have with grief, with loss, with mental health, and with therapy, as well as the ability to grow from difficult times. For me personally, and this could be because I just don't like smut and spice as much, it was almost as if that was used as a healing process. Their reconnection, their physical reconnection, was a vehicle for them to reconnect emotionally, and it didn't really seem as though they did the healing that needed to be done in order to prevent something like this from happening again. It was almost like they separated each other, or they separated from each other and then healed on their own, but did not do the work to repair the very harsh things that I think were happening. And I also think that Josiah needs to do a little more work on understanding why Yasmin reacted the way she did, and how he was very much in the wrong about a lot of things that he reacted. I think he does in some ways in the book acknowledge that there were times that he didn't do a really good job of being the partner that Yasmin needed to be, or needed him to be at in those moments. But there is a sense that he has a level of distrust in her from these events that I think also should be explored a little more before they get back together. This part didn't come out as I intended it to. I never want to make the assumption that people have to be wholly healed in order to be together. I think what my main issue was, there was a really big factor that led to these people becoming divorced, and it didn't seem like that issue that led to them getting divorced ever really got addressed in a meaningful way that made me want to root for them to get back together. I wish that I saw more vulnerability with, and I think that that's something that is experienced a lot in real life, that we will replace emotional vulnerability with physical intimacy and almost act like they are interchangeable. I think that's what I was missing a little bit more from the book. Is I wish that I saw them be more emotionally vulnerable with each other. There were times where they were emotionally vulnerable with each other. There were. I'm not saying there were none, but I would have liked to see it a little more. I would love to have seen Josiah dig into it a little more. The daughter, Deja, attacking Yasmin. At a certain point, I just felt bad for Yasmin. It didn't seem like anyone was on her side, and she was even convinced at the end that she had done a lot of wrong, but I don't see a lot of wrong with the way that she reacted to her loss. Overall, I thought that this was a great book, a beautiful book. There is a sequel, I believe it's already out. If not out, it will be out soon, that talks about one of the friends one of the friends that were introduced from Yasmin. And I don't know exactly what it's about, but I know that it's about her. The next book that I ended up reading was Bunny by Mona Awad. And this is another book that I knew some parts of it. I knew that it was going to be a horror lit fic, but I didn't really know anything else about it. I know Bunny. I feel like Bunny is a little controversial, or not controversial in terms of anything crazy, but I feel like you either love it or you hate it. I could see why people wouldn't like it, but I did like it. I would also think that reading it would be a better experience than audiobook. The audiobook experience was great, it was fine, but I did find myself spacing out at some points, and when I came back to the book, I had no clue what was going on. You need to pay attention to what's happening in the book because things are really funky-dunky, really weird, and they change super quickly. Bunny follows the story of a grad student named Samantha. She's an English grad student who has other women in her cohort who she calls the bunnies. The bunnies one day invite her over for what they call a smut salon, and the story follows their journey with Samantha, her friend, and the bunnies. It is weird, it's odd, it is something that I think is very grad student coded, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. I think it had a bit of camp to it. It had a vibe of very camp to it, very weird and no explanations to it. And at times I really enjoy those because it allows the reader to interpret the actions of the characters and get their own interpretations out of it and get their own commentary out of it without saying too much, but know that there's something there. And if you think that this is hypocritical compared to Conversation with Friends, that's fine. But I really liked Bunny. I don't know if it's if it's something that would appeal to everybody, but I loved the camp. I loved the oddity. I liked it. It was fun. It was a fun read. Next book I read is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. Benjamin Stevenson is an Aussie writer, and this book is set in Australia. Hopefully I don't come off as too ignorant to not realize that people like skied and snowboarded in Australia. I know that this is very American of me most likely, but I truly just like imagined desert and beach for miles on end when I thought of Australia. There are mountains and snow caps. The more you know. It's told from the perspective of one, Ernest. He goes through every single person in his family and who and how they have killed somebody. But the overarching story follows Ernest as he tries to solve the mystery that is unfolding when they find a dead body during his family reunion. His brother is returning from prison after a murder that he committed, and his wife, that's not so much his wife, is also coming to this family reunion. This book is meta. This book addresses the narrator, this book addresses the reader. This book kind of like breaks the fourth wall a little bit, acts like Ernest Cunningham is a real person. I really like it. The writing style is very fun, easy, but it has a really good job. I really like books and media that has the ability to insert humor in the right way, but also in a way that keeps it very real. There are also times in this book where we get some emotional realness, some emotional vulnerability from the narrator themselves, and overall the story is, it's an easy read. I went through it generally quickly. The pacing's pretty good. I will add the disclaimer. I read a couple of books that I'm not usually someone who reads these genres. I mainly stick with science fiction and contemporary literature. Don't really gravitate towards mystery or horror or romance or fantasy. I will try to insert some fantasy into my reading. But yes, this book was very good, very fun. Lovers of mystery with quirk and humor will enjoy this book. The last book, and coincidentally my favorite book out of this month, and will most likely be one of my favorite books of the year, is Chain Gang All Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. This is my wheelhouse. I love dystopian fiction. I love science fiction. I love science fiction that I love commentary about our society put on a science fiction tilt. What to say about this book? Now, if you don't know, now, this book is set in what I'm assuming is a not so distant future. Incarcerated people that are given life sentences have the opportunity to win back their freedom by becoming links on a chain, and these chains travel around the country battling other chains to win back their freedom. Kind of, how they used to like put all of them on like one chain link and they would all walk together like that. Not exactly, they're not tied together in that way, but they are depicted as consistently always kind of being hurdled together until they fight. It is at the time a very controversial but highly popular, highly watched sport, and it follows two of these links / gladiators / incarcerated people as they fight for their chance at freedom. Speaks about what we would all consider very terrible things, to have even people who have committed crimes go around murdering other people and continuing on that cycle of violence in order to gain their freedom. Adjei-Brenyah adds in footnotes of real true stories of people who have been victims of the justice system and the stories of many people incarcerated today who are placed in unethical situations. So it is a really good commentary on our justice system, and it adds in an element of humanness. I loved the conversations that the main characters have with themselves, and even the other side characters have with themselves, the commentary that they have with themselves, the questioning they have with themselves. They are talking about what makes someone worthy of redemption, and even after doing this, after you've committed all this violence to get your freedom, at that point, do you even want it? Do you even deserve it? It is a really interesting book. It is really good. I highly recommend anyone to read it, even if you're not even into science fiction or dystopian novels. The ability to bring you back into the real world, it felt like a little piece of activism in there as well. So I really enjoyed it. It was a really good read, and it was a really good way to end out my month. Like this book felt like an act of yelling out, saying my piece, like really making a statement. It was like a getting back to your roots when it comes to dystopia kind of book, and so that's why I would recommend it to literally everyone. The parallels are not so abstract or obtuse that it makes it inaccessible to anyone, and I love that. I think for some people it might throw them off because it might be a little too on the nose or so direct, but I think it worked really well in this case. All right, those are all the books that I read this month. I'm currently finishing up 2, but I predict that I will be finishing them up in February. My goal for February, which is unfortunate because they're both by white people, but my goal for February, of course, is Black History Month. So I'm going to be trying to find a variety of books from different Black authors in different genres. And I will make a video talking about that as well, about my February TBR. If you enjoyed this video, if you like these kinds of books, if you love talking about books, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe if you feel so compelled. I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.